I'm Park Howell, and welcome to the Business of Story, where I consult, teach, coach, and speak on the applied science and bewitchery of brand and business storytelling, so that you can clarify your story to amplify your impact and simplify your life.
I thought it was just a stupid picture of a pig in the ocean. But after hearing that story, I had to have it. Now I wasn't just buying a picture. I was buying a story. Story literally made the picture worth more money to me.
That's what businesses are about. People buy brands. People buy stories much more than anything else.
I work with a lot of big enterprise companies, but let's just say I always tell folks, drop the PowerPoint, close your laptops, start with your story.
If you want people to get engaged and you want people to act, you have to tell them an emotionally powerful story. That's with great characters, it's with uncertain outcomes, and it's with high stakes and drama.
All business strategy is a story.
Welcome to today's Business of Story. We'll have a really interesting program for you in that it all started a few months ago when I got a peculiar email from a gentleman by the name of Richie Prynne, the front man for a British blues Americana band out of London. And he was saying that they needed to work on their narrative marketing. Now, they were already pretty good at it, doing some of the things they call guerrilla busking. And I'll let Richie kind of explain that, because to me, I didn't know what that was at first. But what he really was asking for is, could he use the DIY workbook to help them get their brand story straight and how they could use it in their own narrative marketing efforts to take this band to new and great places. So he's done that. He reached out the other day, said, thanks, it's been very helpful. I've been to their site, CCSmugglers.com, seeing some of the documentary work they've done in the past and where they're going with this. And it was such an interesting and fascinating story. And I think it also sort of underscores the universal structure and approach to storytelling the story cycle system is, that I invited Richie to come on the show. He's knee-deep not only in performing, producing a new album that'll be out this spring, but he's also editing a documentary about the growth and the journey of the band. So Richie is coming to us from a van, I believe, in London somewhere on his cell phone. Richie, welcome to the Business of Story.
Hello, thank you. What an honor.
Oh, it's my honor to have you here. It's, just the other day, my wife and I went and saw Bohemian Rhapsody, a terrific movie.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if it's come out in Europe yet or not, but I am a gigantic Queen fan and love, of course, Freddie Mercury and everything, what his music stood for. So I was completely in this, rock and roll mode when this show, we were recording the show. So it's fantastic. So Richie, give us a little bit of the backstory about you, CC Smugglers, and the kind of music that you guys produce and tour around the world with.
So basically, I play with my friends. We're about, there's four of us that started the band. We grew up in the villages of Bedfordshire, so we were right out in the countryside, and we kind of just hung out with each other. It's not a big music scene, and we were into this old American music anyway, and we just made a band. And then the natural progression is to travel to a big city, like either Cambridge or London, and start busking on the streets. That's where we started, and we became really good as street performers.
And busking, busking is what? Define that for us Americans, because I think that's kind of new to us over here. At least it is for me.
Is that an English term, is it?
I don't know. I just had never heard it before until I started doing the research in your band.
Oh, right. Yeah. I mean, busking is standing on the corner of a street and putting your guitar case open and playing songs and trying to get people to throw money in, basically. It's street performance. And then if you go into London, you go, there's areas of London which have massive street performance areas. And then you have like jugglers and acrobats, and they can control big crowds of people. And I learned from a little boy that was just a real art form, to be able to control a crowd as they're passing by. And that's kind of how we learned our stagecraft. But it's very hard when you're a street performer then to progress further than the street, because that's kind of, you get stuck in a rut, and you need to like develop onto touring or being on a stage and having a fan base. And that was where we kind of learned that we're going to have to think outside the box to create an actual career for ourselves.
Yeah, because in the U.S., at least my experience when you're seeing street performers, it's typically one, maybe two people out there. It's not an entire band. And when also you think about these are the folks that, never really make it to the stage, but you guys used it as your initial stage to then go on and do some pretty cool things.
Yeah. I mean, a long time before we'd ever heard of narrative marketing, it was just a sort of means to an end. We needed to build a fan base. So we thought, the fans of our kind of music, we were lucky because our music is like all acoustic instruments like banjos and fiddle, and they work really good on the streets anyway. But we thought, who's going to like that kind of music? So we pulled out our heroes and thought, let's go to their gigs. And when there's a big queue of people queuing up outside their gigs, that's our market. And they're all stuck there. They can't move. So we can play to them and give them flyers. We just pop up, play. And then as soon as they've gone in the gig, we disappear and normally try and get in the gig for free as well.
All right.
Let
me stop you right there for a second. And let's have some of your music pop up right now, just so our audiences can hear how good you guys are and the kind of music that you actually play. All right. So let's take a moment and play a track from CC Smugglers.
When I find my way, my friend, it's gonna be a good day. It's gonna be a good day. When I find my way, when I find my way, my friend, it's gonna be a good day. Ooh, the world would be a dark place without blue shining eyes and face. I'm lost with no place to go. It's gonna be a good day. When I find my way, oh Lord, when I find my way, my friend, it's gonna be a good day. A good day. Yeah! All right, Shirley, that's all. Yes,
Man, Richie, that is just wonderful. I mean, I could be in Tennessee somewhere, let alone London, hearing that kind of music. So what was that track?
That's a track called Good Day.
And how did it come about? Is that written by you guys?
Oh yeah, I mean every track that we play is original songwriting, and that particular track that was with an old member that we had a few years ago, and he was our keys player. We have a new keys player now, but he also could play the trumpet as well. And that having the trumpet on a street corner is like a golden egg. So we used to use that trumpet as much as we could. So that's just one example of when we used it. So it's great. It's a really good positive track, and I think it kind of like sums up the whole feeling of the band as well. It's all about good time music and up-tempo, good feeling music.
Yeah, and so Richie, you have been playing for a long time, and in your band, you recruited some childhood friends, Dan Edwards, Ryan Thomas, and Sam Barrett, who had spent years also, I guess, on the streets of London, Cambridge, and Bedford, England, you said, just honing their craft.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So it must be quite something to see all of you out there busking on a street corner. So you were doing this and you call it guerrilla busking. Why do you call it? What are you doing that's different than other buskers that you call it guerrilla busking?
Yeah, I mean, we spent a long time just standing on the corner, presenting our show, trying to grab the audience as they walk past, and we got really, really good at it. But when we decided we wanted to move up to the next level, the next stage was to try and get this captured market of fans of the right genres queuing up that couldn't get away. And that's when it became guerrilla busking. We kind of coined it that after we'd started, because we realized, you know what, this is like almost like Vietnam tactics. We just like appear out of nowhere, bust out a few tunes, hand out a few flyers, and then we're done in 20 minutes because the crowds have gone in. And rather than spending what we used to spend 4 or 5 hours on the street, we were done in 20 minutes, and we'd come back and our Facebook likes will have gone up by 150 likes.
So you were going after your audience. You were busking before shows like SeaSick Steve, Old Crow Medicine Show, The Devil Makes Three, Jools Holland, and others. So you would identify where they're performing, and you would essentially co-op the beginning of their performance to entertain the crowd as they were queuing up ready to go into the theater.
Absolutely, yeah. And you know what happened accidentally is we started before, but what we realized is actually, you know what, that's a good time to play to them, but the better time is when they're coming out, because they're not ready for the night to end. They're totally pumped. And then you'll see, and on the next episode of the documentary, you start to see signs of us going and doing these guerrilla busking things at the end of a show, and we get crowds pumping across the road. There's like police redirecting cars around the crowds. Sometimes we'd have hundreds and hundreds of people in the street because they've all piled out the gig, and then they're just ready for like round 2 of the party. We'd stumbled on something that worked so well.
And did you ever get in trouble for this? Did you ever have the bands come out and try to, shoo you off, or have the police show up and say, you can't be creating this commotion out here?
Not really. No, I mean, no, not really. A couple of times we'd say one time in London we got moved. The security said, this is a fire hazard, you have to move. So I just said, we've got to move, everyone come with us. And we just like Pied Pipered the whole crowd down the road, and we just went down to the corner, and they just came with us.
Uh-huh.
But normally the bands, what we found is we thought we were going after the fans, and they were kind of our audience. But another audience, which was arguably more powerful, which I learned through your marketing course, is that actually another audience was the kind of key influencers, which are really the bands themselves. So like you'll see from the first episode of the documentary, which came out 2 weeks ago and is on our Facebook, that one of the first guys we did it to was CC Steve, who's absolutely huge in the UK, and he's now, we just played Hyde Park with CC Steve, and he's on the documentary, and he remembers every time we've done it, and he used to come out and he'd put money in our case, and he'd bring us a bottle of wine.
£20 one day, according to your documentary.
Yeah, totally. And there were other times when he'd come out and just come and bring some booze out and stand on the corner, and I literally just played on national radio with him last week. He said, look, I need a harmonica player, come on Radio 2 with me. And so actually it's funny that we thought we were going for a few Facebook likes from the crowds, but actually the guys in the bands respected it as much, and we got as much out of that as we did getting their fans for us as well.
Well, and it's fun how you're capturing this in your documentary, and folks, you can see it at ccsmuggler.com. We'll also have links in the show notes, but it's fun how you
CC
guys...
Smugglers with an S on the end as well.
Oh, thank you. Plurals.
You got to say it right.
There's more than one smuggler involved here. It's not just Richie smuggling. It's CC Smugglers. Thanks for...
It's a group effort.
.com. So, Richie, did you always... Let's go back a little bit even further in your time. Take us to a moment when you were a kid, or whenever it was, that you knew this was the life for you, that you knew you wanted to be a musician.
Oh, that's interesting. I tell you what, there was at our school, we had quite a big music department, and I never did a music GCSE or anything, but I got a guitar when I was 12. And I had this like acoustic guitar, and then I went up to upper school, which is like once you're 12 or between 12 and 13, you go up to the big school, the big kids.
Yeah, the high school, and they call it here.
Yeah, right,
Mm-hmm.
High school. And I was like one of the smallest, one of the youngest kids, and they had this thing called Rockfest, which was like they put on this basically a big rock concert of all school bands, and I was a little lad in my class, and his name was Joe Henley, and he looked like the Milky Bar kid. He was so tiny, and I remember his whole family were musicians, and he had a band, and I just had a guitar. And I remember going into the hall and watching him sound check, and I thought, wow. And once he was on stage, he just absolutely owned the room. And I literally remember thinking, one day I'm going to be up there doing that. And actually, you know what? It wasn't seeing huge superstars. It wasn't going to see big concerts. It was watching someone my age who was actually a lot less assuming than I was. He was a real small, shy, geeky guy. But when I saw him up on that stage, he was like a different man. And that was the point where I thought, that's what I want to get up and do. And I made it happen for sure.
And so when did you put your first band together?
I reckon probably within weeks of that moment of going to that first rock concert, I will have put a band together.
And when did CC Smugglers come about?
So that came, that probably came, I was always writing music and playing music on my acoustic guitar. But during school, when I was having like a testosterone overdose, it was all like punk and pop punk and rock bands. So up until I was about 18, it was like a real rock and roll. We were trying to be as rock and roll as possible. We were drinking a lot, and kind of, it was like a runaway train, and it kind of never really worked because we just thought we would just had to get drunk to be rock and roll. We never concentrated on the music, and in the end, those bands all fell apart because we weren't concentrating on the right thing. And between 18 and 20, I had no band. And then I'd moved into a flat with a friend who was a musician, and they were spent 2 weeks solid recording at a studio. And I was on my own in the flat for 2 weeks. And I remember just thinking, why? I want to be recording. Why am I just sat here and he's making an album? And it was in those 2 weeks that I wrote a bunch of songs and demoed it, and I started playing on my own. And as I did that, I had friends who came back from traveling, and they'd been listening to all the same music as I was listening to, and they came and joined me, and that was kind of the germ of CC Smugglers started then. So I was about 20, so that was a good few years ago, maybe 21.
And how long has the band been around then?
I'd say we've been officially existing about 10 years.
About 10 years. So you started playing regular gigs, like pub gigs and that kind of thing, as well as busking. How did the band progress?
Yeah, I mean, we would play any gig that we could get, but you would be just playing for beers, basically. And we play like our little local, it's like one local music venue in Bedford, one local music venue in Hitchin, which are the two towns near our villages. And so we would play those, and that's all we'd play. And then we thought, right, we need to get out. So we would go to the big cities and busk. And we realized we could make, in 4 hours, we could make 500 quid. We went to Paris once. We made 900 euros in 4 hours. So it's like, for us, for the next 5 years, we were just like, wow, this is amazing. And we kind of just honed that street performance craft that whole time. And it was only after about 4 or 5 years, we were like, we're so good at this, but how are we going to take this to another level?
And that's, I mean, you were so good at the street performance and everything that comes with that, from the weather to the indigents to the drunks, that I would imagine kind of mess with you in the process, that you are able to play through all of that, but it prepped you for then the bigger stage. Yeah. I mean, to be fair, the crazy guys, if you're a street performer, you have to deal with the crazy guys. Like, there will be at least 3 or 4 crazy guys that come up to you and they're trying to mess with your stuff, or they're trying to like talk to you in the midst. So that is one thing. That's like a separate thing that you definitely get good at. But really, you get good at holding an audience's attention. And when you know they're walking past, so you have to make them stop, and then you have to hold on to that attention for as long as possible, and then you kind of have to monetize that without saying anything. You have to make them want to put stuff in the pot, and you have to, in between songs, you have to say, please like us on Facebook and like us on Instagram, because we need to be able to hold on to you and talk to you later and tell you what we're doing. And so they're the skills that I still do now. Absolutely. So you not only have to be a musician, but you have to be a docent in one way to keep them engaged in the show as they're going across, and you have to be a marketer. All three to really make that work for you. Yeah, man, that's it. And I think those skills are applying right now when I'm like writing out business plans and trying to put this limited company into profit, and I'm still using those absolute seeds of skills that I learned. Well, what prompted you to send me the email a few months back about, and I think, as I recall it, it was something like, hey, we're a band over here. We, like all bands, don't have a lot of money. We would love to use your workbook. May we use it? And I think I just sent you a free copy of it if I don't have that right. But correct me,
You
but
totally did, yeah.
what prompted you to reach? How did you find me, and what prompted you to say, I think I can use the story cycle to help CC Smugglers?
Well, you know what? I tell you, I know exactly how it was. So, and I know exactly when it was as well, because it was on the first week of August. We'd made an album, and we'd kind of crowdfunded for this album just so we had the cash to go in the studio. But for our marketing budget, we were negotiating with a major record label over here, and it seemed seemed absolutely certain. And there was like a $50,000 licensing deal for the marketing budget on the table. And then they would say, oh, well, we just want you to change that mix, or we just want you to try a new producer, and we were delaying and delaying because we crowdfunded. We were getting people saying, hey, you said you were going to bring this album out 6 months ago. Where is it? And we couldn't tell them, oh, we might have a deal, so we're delaying because they want us to do this and that. And after 6 months of delays, they asked us to completely remix everything. And we just thought, we can't do this. We can't just keep doing this. We need to go. And it was effectively like the deal just fell through. And I had a phone call with our management team, and they just said, we need to go now, and we can't wait for this deal. We're going to have to do it DIY. And 2 months before we'd had that phone call, my right-hand man manager, Jenny, she'd just had a baby. She'd literally just given birth to a baby. So I was more on my own. That DIY was like literally do it yourself, mate. And so I kind of had a fight or flight moment where I had a day of panic and depression because the deal that we'd expected to happen had fallen through. And then I just thought, well, we just have to do this, and we have to do it. We have to do it outside the box. 5 years ago, we created this whole brand by pulling out one band and following them round their entire UK tour, standing outside every one of their gigs until they finally let us join them on stage. And the Sunday Times national newspaper picked up on it, and that was what kind of elevated us. And we got signed by an international touring agency, and we signed with this management we're still with. So that was like an outside of the box approach that really shot us. And I thought, I need to learn lessons from that, and I need to apply them to this similar but different situation. And I kind of was mulling this over, how are we going to think outside the box and do this almost for cheap? Like that $50,000 marketing budget turned to a $4,000 marketing budget. And I'm thinking, if I have to do this myself, how are we going to do it? And I started looking at marketing videos, and I started and your video popped up. I don't know if it was like a suggested ad or just kind of come up in the suggested YouTube things. And I watched it, and I was like, this man is talking absolute sense. Like this, you were just telling me everything that I had already known without knowing it. Like all of the way that we promoted all the guerrilla busking I knew by then it was the story of these young street performing lads who had a brave idea, risked everything, and went out to try and achieve something. It wasn't that we achieved it. It was that all of the people who were following us were rooting for us, and they believed in the characters and the passion. That's what really drove us that first time. And I knew that I needed to harness that the next time. And I thought, this guy gets it. So that's when I wrote an email, and I said, you were right. Because I said, dude, I mean, I don't want to start a whole flux of people writing to you asking for it for free. But I was like, man, I can't afford this, but this is exactly what I need. And I was so proud when you emailed back and said, do you know what? Fair play, mate. Don't ask, you don't get. Take it and do a good job. And I really did try. I tried my very best. And it just seems to have been starting to work in the last month or so. It seems to be working.
One thing about that tale that I really like is you were kind of being pulled by two different groups of people. You had the corporate side, and you had the record label that said, Richie, we need to go in and do this. Forget your fans. Let's spend some more time in doing this the way we want to do it. And in essence, by pushing back, you lost that connection because you did it in honor of the fans, those people that have been rooting for you, all this time. So I think it says a heck of a lot about you and your mates and the kind of music that you're creating. And I think when I listen to your music now, and I just really started listening to it after I got to know you, you can feel that and you can hear it in your product, in the songs you write, and I think the heart and soul that you bring to your music, that you are about and for your fans, and that comes through loud and clear.
Oh man, you're so right. And if you're like following us on Facebook, you'll notice like every single Facebook post is like, we don't have a huge fan base. We're very lucky to have a good, solid cult fan base. But you'll notice, like, you look at each post, and the comments are there's hundreds of comments, and we'll make sure we reply to every single one of them. And like after the shows, whenever we can, we stop and chat to people, because like my godfather was an opera singer, and I remember when I first started being asked to sign signatures, I said to my mum, I don't like doing it. It looks so arrogant. I think I should be signing signatures. And she said, you have to sign every single one of those, because your Uncle Jeff, and he's passed away now, bless him, he said, your Uncle Jeff used to stand outside the back of the stage door and sign until everybody had gone, because those are the people who put the money in his heater and pay for his rent. And if that's what they want, then that's what you give them. It's no skin off your nose, but it's not arrogant. It's what you need to do. And ever since that is again another lesson that I try to apply at every available opportunity.
Yeah. So when you got your DIY workbook and you started thinking through and walking through the 10-step system, can you take us to some of the story elements, or how it appeared to you your story was coming together? And I think you're right, you were already doing this, you just didn't realize it. You were so close into it, so this really operated as more of a guide for you. But how did you flesh out your story and make it even stronger using the process?
Yeah, I mean, I think the main key point is actually thinking about what is the story, in as much as what is the story for the person reading it or watching it. You've got to think from your audience's perspective, like, what are the audience getting out of this, and who is the audience? So I'll have one whole type of thinking for the fans that have been with us for years and years, and those fans they'll want to see us coming through all the things they've invested their time and their money. They want to see us do good by them. And then you've got kind of new fans. So what if we've just attracted a new fan from a show? What do they want, and what's going to make them happy? And like that, to me, was something I would always think, oh, we can do this and it would be really cool, and people will think it's really cool. But actually, you've got to really be empathetic and put yourself in their shoes, because if you can give them what they want, then you've made a connection, and that connection can last for years and years and years. So that, I think, was the golden piece of the golden nugget that I clung onto.
Did you, or have you, or will you be using some of this narrative structure for how you are creating your documentary? I think right now you are literally calling from a van somewhere as you are editing your current documentary. Are you using some of these things in that?
Yeah. I'm sat outside. We were just running through the second episode now. We're just kind of finishing it up. So I was like, got the reminder on my phone. It's like, I forgot we were doing this now. Like, ran out and sat in the van outside. But yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like, yeah, we're trying to like apply kind of the narrative arc, but at all times I'm thinking about it from the audience perspective, and that is like, I mean, I think I will apply that to almost everything I do with this band, even on the stage, even on the show. You've got to be thinking about what am I giving to these people, because if you're not providing something for them, why would they stick around? It can't come from a selfish, narcissistic place, because who likes hanging around with narcissists, really?
Welcome to America.
No comment.
Hey, I want to make a clarification. I said your website. So your website's going to totally stick with our listeners because I've botched it now 5 times. ccsmugglers.co.uk. I had said .com before.
Oh, you can say we're on both, man.
Okay, good. Okay.
Yeah.
I was just looking at
CCSmugglers.com. Yeah.
Okay, good. I just want to double check that. Let me ask you too, then. You guys, write a lot of great music. Do you see, or might this narrative approach impact how you would approach a song potentially in the future? And I'm particularly curious about this because I actually got a degree in music composition and theory in college. I'm a musician, love it, hate to perform. I have huge stage fright when I sit down at the piano. So literally only my wife and my dog and our cat listen to me. Written a lot of music in my life as a kid growing up and that sort of thing. So I'm fascinated about how music works and how it comes together, much like story. And really every song is a story. And I'm curious too, from what you and how you're applying the story cycle system to your narrative marketing for CC Smugglers, do you see how it could also impact the songs you write?
Do you know what? I had not thought of that. And the thing is, I've been, from August when we spoke to now, the main thing I've been consumed with, other than going on tour, which we just come back off of tour, has been creating this campaign and then getting out on tour and keeping it all running. So I haven't almost had a chance to even get stuck into being creative, and it's something that I'm kind of like absolutely gagging for. And it's so funny that you should say that, because I'm like, it's funny that I think you can apply this to almost everything. And I'd never taken the time to think that you could actually connect both those two things. But I think there's no doubt, absolutely. And I probably already do. And that's the beauty of your marketing course, really, is that you're doing all these things anyway. But the real skill is doing it with awareness and making a sensible, aware decisions. And I think you're just pointing that out. When I sit down to it, I hope that I cling on to that and remember that, because I'm sure that it will help.
Yeah, well, it's just being intentional about it. And I learned it in my own career in the advertising marketing world when we would run 2 TV commercials in the same campaign, and one 30-second commercial would really attract a lot of audiences and customers, and the second one wouldn't. And of course, we would love them both as our own children. We created them. And in hindsight, now that I learned what I've learned about storytelling and story structure, I can go back to every one of those spots and say, this worked because it had a story structure to it. Now, I wasn't, Richie, intentional about doing it. It just came out because we're all innate storytellers. But the other spot didn't work because it wasn't. It was sort of a creative masturbation, if you will. It was like, oh, this is a cool creative idea. Let's just put this out. This will work great. And I'm sure a lot of people just went, huh? But to a spot when you could see story structure in one and not in the other, that one that had story structure would pull by multitudes over without it. That's when I realized, even us in the communications world or the music world or songwriting world, that oftentimes our creativity will get in the way of our message if we don't first intentionally tell a story. And then make that story certainly as creative as you want it to be. But to follow this framework, set up problem resolution of taking people on a journey, having an arc to it. So you start the song one place, but when you are done, they feel like he took me somewhere. I went on a journey with them along the way. I mean, you think about it, your Guerrilla Busking, which is just a terrific marketing stunt, it's a story in its own right. You have a setting, you have a cue, and these people are not expecting you. And then when you show up and set your band up, I'm sure they're expecting, oh, this will be a nice little street band. But then you guys kill it when you're playing it. So now you have created a whole story right on the stage there, outside of a queue leading into the Apollo Theater or whatever, that they won't forget, a story that they will share, even so much so that the other performers would come out and pay you and give you booze and even bring you up on stage, and then you would hit them again on the way out. So in essence, you were staging little stories every time you performed. You had a setup, you had then this great band, which is kind of a contradiction in their mind because they weren't expecting this great band. And then you had this resolution, both going in and coming out of the theater.
Totally. And you know what? that is just the prelude to the novel. So when they come and they sign up and they follow us on Facebook and they follow the journey, then they watch what they perceive to be the greater story unfolding. And that's how you kind of retain those people and hold them on, because they've seen this little chapter and they want to see more. And then they watch us just kind of evolving the momentum. And as long as you keep feeding them new chapters and stuff, then they're in love with the whole concept. So I totally agree with you.
Well, and as you had said earlier, your fans are rooting for you. So they want to see you be successful, but they want to live vicariously through that success. So they're like, I'm right there with Richie and the gang, and oh, wow, check it out what they did. Or I was at that show, so that your story becomes their story, and then it just compounds itself and they share it with others. But again, hats off to you for pushing back on the big record label and really honoring your fans, saying, no, we need to get this out there. They've given us their money and we need to get the album out. So that's fantastic.
Thanks. Yeah. I mean, it would have been nice not to have to, but you just got it. I mean, you never know. We might look back on it and just think, actually, if we hadn't have done that, like, I'm glad we did it, because I don't think we would have been doing this documentary project. And it's so integrally, absolutely what we're all about. I think everything happens for a reason eventually. So yeah, thanks, man.
And Richie, why the documentary project? You guys are busy enough with your own music and touring. Why did you decide to do the doc?
Well, I said we followed one band around the whole UK tour, and that was kind of, then they took us on stage, and the newspaper, the Sunday Times, picked up on it and did a big centre page spread. And that was kind of what got us signed with an agent and a management, and we kind of rocketed off of that 1 week. We took a filmmaker with us on that week. So he documented the whole thing. And when we got back, we had like 100 and something hours of footage. And the guy, he'd only just started out. He didn't really know what he's doing. And we just never managed to make a film out of it. But we always had that sitting there. That film is just fantastic. Sorry, I just got distracted then. But that, the filmmaker that I'm working with just came and peered through the window. I thought he was going to knock on the door, but he obviously heard me still talking. But
he's like, anyway, where are you, man? Get in here on the edit.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so we always had that film footage there, and we just never made it. And when we had this, I thought, do you know what? Now is the time. Now is the time to do that. And not only, I think if we'd have made it then, that would have been cool. But I think what's good about doing it now is that we're in a different place. So we can like look back on what we were doing back then. What were the challenges then compared to now? We're kind of in some ways, we're where we dreamed we would be 5 years ago. We dreamed to be touring the world. We dreamed to be going on tours, and we've played like crowds of 20,000, 10,000. We're where we wanted to be, but now we're here. We're actually in the same place. We're still broke. We're still struggling and battling to create something and hold on to something. And what I want to do is compare yesterday's struggles with today's struggles, and actually the theme is still the same. It's still passion and risk and camaraderie and just a work ethic, and that to me, I was like, this is the point. Especially when that record deal fell through, I was just like, what are we going to do? How are we going to do this? What we're going to do is we're going to apply the exact same grit and determination as we did 5 years ago right now. And to me, it just, everything went chink, 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 fell into place. This is the time to do it. And I'm telling you, we're working on episode 2 now, which is the first episode of that original week-long Guerrilla Busking tour it's with the band Old Crow Medicine Show. And I'm working on the first little clip, the first little episode of that. And I'm so proud of it. And it's be well worth watch. And that is out. That episode is out on the 14th of this month, 14th of November. You can check out the prelude episode, which is already out.
And by the time this episode airs, it will be up and running, folks, so you can go and watch it. And what I'll do, Richie, you've been very generous with your time being on today's show. I'll turn you loose back to your editor so he's not rapping on your van window there. And before I let you go, can you give our listeners, 1, 2, or 3 points that you have experienced as a performer, busking, playing on the streets, that we could all take away to learn how to build our businesses? What'd you learn? What have you learned from the streets of London?
Do you know what? The main kind of point I would probably say, thinking on the fly, I would probably say it's not even. I didn't even learn it in the streets of London and Cambridge. I learned it when I was back in school, back in the village, and that's like I struggled at school. I have like this thing called dyspraxia, which is a learning difficulty, but it's also kind of a physical difficulty. So it makes me clumsy and disorganized. And it's kind of like there's tiny little bits of my brain that just don't quite work. I just like never learned the months of the year. I just can't get that sequence. It's really, really odd. And for a long time, I kind of felt like I was a bit useless. And then something in me, I think over the years, I just learned that if I had to get round knowing what month of the year it is, and I couldn't reel off the whole list of them, I needed to find a different way around that problem. And that lesson, I learned very quickly that you don't just have to go to point C from point A through B. You can go, there are loads of different ways of solving the same problem. And that, I think, has made me a real kind of problem solver, an innovative problem solver, and that is just echoing now through this business. And I would just say, like, there's always a different way. There's always a way of standing out from the crowd and solving a problem in a different way. And every time I've done something slightly different to everybody else, it's always shot me right up in front. That would be my advice.
Oh, well, thank you very much for sharing that with us. Really, really powerful stuff. Thank you for taking the time to be on the show today, Richie. We truly
thank you so much.
Yeah, and best of luck on your documentary and your new album coming out this spring.
Thank you ever so much. I owe a lot of it to you, so thanks, Park. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, and thank you all for listening to this edition of The Business of Story. Hang with me right after this close because we're going to play Good Day in its entirety. Thank you to Richie and CC Smugglers for making that available to us. And of course, if I can be of assistance to you in developing your brand story, helping you clarify it, to amplify your impact, simplify your life, join me over at businessofstory.com, and I'd be happy to help. Join us next week when we'll have another amazing story artist like Richie. And until then, of course, remember that the most potent story you are ever going to tell is a story you tell yourself. So make it a great one. Good day, everyone.
Been one lost for years, a young boy ran astray. With the help of a good, strong woman, oh, maybe I'll find my way. It's gonna be a good, good day when I find my way. Oh Lord, when I find my way, my friend, it's gonna be a good, good day. Yeah. Stormy weather's driven me to drift my way off course. My baby girl's a lighthouse and we gotta be back to shore. Gonna be a good, good day when I find my way. Oh, when I find my way, my friend, it's gonna be a good, good day. Gonna be a good, good day when I find my way. Oh, when I find my way, my friend, it's gonna be a good, good day. Oh, the world would be a dark place without blue shining eyes and face. I'm lost with no place to go. When I find my way, oh Lord, when I find my way, my friend, it's gonna be a good, good day. Gonna be a good, good day. Oh, when I find my way, oh, when I find my way, my friend, it's gonna be a good, good day.